Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is rather the Carr-Quest of H.P. Lovecraft. I just finished The Whisperer in Darkness, and yeah, what was that? What was that ending? Not a bad ending, just a creepy as balls ending. So last we left off, we were talking about just like the general story. If you see me looking off to the side over here, it's because I've written like little notes and things that to talk about. I won't spoil the ending, just so you know. But hot damn, Lovecraft. Sometimes, a lot of times, Lovecraft stories end kind of open, pseudo open-endedly, ominously for sure. Um, yeah, this one was definitely uh, a hell of an ending. Does it make the story? Because the last I was talking about the story, I was thinking like, oh, it's good. It's not my favorite, but it's good. Does the ending save it? I think so a little bit, yeah. Because well, let's kind of get into it. So again, we were talking about just the kind of the general story. Here in this bit, we're gonna talk a little bit more detail. I don't expect this video to last too long because again, it's part two. So there's just kind of some things that I noticed while reading the last little bit, parts four, no, parts 5 through 8. Some of Lovecraft's more problematic language started popping up towards the end. I was just kind of like, as I just kind of read through it. And what was it? It was there was a part that I had read. I'd done a little bit of research on this story, and one of the things mentioned in it was fungi from Yuggoth, and I think that phrase specifically is worded in here. I just can't find it. That's what I was looking for earlier. Um, so if you don't know, fungi, the Whisperer in Darkness has some sort of tie. I can't remember if it came out before or came out after uh, this story. I can't remember if this came out after what I'm going to talk about, before or after. But Lovecraft wrote a series of sonnets with that title, Fungi from Yuggoth. And those are also tied to Lovecraft's greater universe. Which, by the way, I still retain now, as I did it in part one, that this does have a lot of foundational knowledge regarding the workings of H.P. Lovecraft's universe. So if you are gonna go into H.P. Lovecraft, like, oh, I wonder what the elder gods or the great or whatever, or the outer ones or whatever else is going on. This will provide you a little bit more sort of knowledge into that. Although I feel like there are a couple other stories which I feel could probably provide a little bit more. But like, just if you wanted just a general foundation of things, again, Call of Cthulhu, Dunwich Horror, and Whisperer in Darkness. Good little trio of stories to really sort of get you on your way to H.P. Lovecraft. And you're also getting some of the best of Lovecraft as well when you're reading them. So, something that I've failed to mention that I've wanted to in previous episodes is Lovecraft's references to other authors. Sometimes he'll, not often, but sometimes he'll reference other authors. He'll reference people within his own Lovecraft circle, which is kind of like a group of authors who Lovecraft wrote letters to and had correspondence with throughout his life and his writing career. People like Clark Ashton Smith, August Derleth, Robert E. Howard, who you may know, who created Conan the Barbarian, and a couple other folks around that time. And so H.P. Lovecraft would sometimes include little references to his friends. Not all the time, but sometimes. I think like one story, I forget which, specifically said like this certain thing I saw or whatever was almost like the beautiful paintings you'd see by Clark Ashton Smith, and I'm like, okay, it's nice of you to reference your friends, but that's and I haven't seen Clark Ashton Smith's paintings, but I'm sure they're beautiful, but I don't know, it just kind of took me out for a second. I was able to get back in, but yeah. He kind of does it again here. He mentions Clark Ashton, sort of spelled like this. Instead of Clark Ashton Smith, it's Clark Ashton, like a high priest, Clark Ashton, and I'm just like, oh, like again, but here it wasn't as upfront. But here I was just kind of like, oh, there's Clark Ashton Smith's name. That's cool. Kind of like that. Additionally, there was a reference to one Eldritch Lovecraft creature, which I haven't mentioned yet. Again, in addition to Cthulhu, Nyarlathotep, Azathoth. There's also Sithagua. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Sithagua. I don't know. It's pronounced like this down here. So I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Um, and actually, there's a bit here. Again, I'm sort of looking through the notes. There was one segment I wanted to talk about specifically, and this does have spoilers, so keep that in mind as I read this segment. After what he had told, this is I think this is when the narrator Albert is talking with Akeley. After what he had told, I could scarcely imagine what profounder secrets he was saving for the morrow. But at least it developed that his trip to Yuggoth and beyond, and my own possible participation in it, was to be the next day's topic. He must have been amused by the start of horror I gave at hearing Cosmic Voyage on my part proposed, for his head wobbled violently when I showed my fear. This is the part I wanted to talk about. Subsequently, he spoke very gently of how human beings might accomplish, and several times had accomplished, the seemingly impossible flight across the interstellar void. It seemed that complete human bodies did not indeed make the trip, but that the prodigious surgical, biological, chemical, and mechanical skill of the outer ones had found a way to convey human brains without their concomitant physical structure. And then it goes into like I think brain ships, or then there's some sort of machine that starts like talking. It gets really wild after a while. But yeah, it mentions space flight. And this story was written what 1930, like the early 1930s, like the around like somewhere between 1930 and 1935. This was like way before at least 30, 40, and I don't want to make any estimates, but it was long before, like, as far as I know anyway, any actual case of space flight. You know, it was way before, it was definitely way before the US landed on the moon. So, yeah, and I don't know, I wanted to talk about it just because it was a nice little, like, oh, there's a space flight. Did Lovecraft predict that? Maybe not. I don't know. Just like a fun little thing to sort of that I caught there. Otherwise, The Whisper in Darkness. Now we'll get into the grading of it. It's good. It's not my favorite Lovecraft story. Again, I can see why it's in this collection, but it's I will say some of the ideas, and especially the ending, as you saw in the beginning, definitely stuck with me. So I think on like a tier list, I would probably give The Whisperer in Darkness a low A or maybe even B tier. It depends on when I get to the roundup in December. So yeah, this was a good story. Otherwise, again, not my favorite, but I think it does provide a lot of knowledge of the workings of the outer H.P. Lovecraft universe. So with that being said, this has been the Carr-Quest of H.P. Lovecraft. I am your host, Andrew Carr, and next time, whenever that is, either sometime tonight or tomorrow, that could be possible, we will be delving into the color out of space. So until then, see ya.